Hello and welcome to The Rewind, where we dive into the making and legacy of various films from cult classics to award-winning masterpieces. Today's movie is Beautiful Girls, the 1996 comedy drama that stars Timothy Hutton as a jazz pianist who returns to his hometown of Knightsbridge, Massachusetts for his high school reunion, where he finds his friends evaluating their lives and relationships. Directed by Ted Demme and written by Scott Rosenberg, Beautiful Girls stars a powerhouse cast that includes Matt Dillon, Uma Thurman, Natalie Portman, and more in a sweet and nostalgic failing to come of age movie. Joining me today to talk all things Beautiful Girl is renowned film analyst and critic turned film producer, Mr. Nick Clement. Nick, I thank you so very much for joining me today.
Thanks again for having me back on the podcast. I love this movie, and I hadn't seen it in a while after watching it a lot when I was 16, 17, 18. So it was a joy to revisit.
The thing I love about this movie is that it brings back a certain piece of nostalgia for me because I remember watching this. I must have been around 15, 16 years old. So that would have been around 97, 98 when I watched it. It was on cable. And I didn't watch it from the start. It's one of those films where you kind of watch like maybe 10 minutes in and it kind of grabs you and you just watch it all the way through because it's just so good. I think the scene that I saw first was when it's Rappaport, Timothy Hutton, Matt Dillon, and the other actor, I forgot his name now, but they were together in, yes, they're together in the booth, and Rappaport is trying to explain how champagne color diamonds, brown essentially, are the new things. And from that point on, I just watched the whole movie and I absolutely loved it. I loved the performances, the writing, just everything about it. To me, was a movie that really like just encapsulates all that is great about kind of like that type style of comedy drama in the mid 90s. Type of movie that I don't know if that can be made now. I think these days the whole Netflix algorithm kind of thing, you have to explain everything within the first 10 minutes before people switch to their phones thing. It wouldn't work with them. But for me, it's almost kind of like a perfect movie in a lot of ways and just everything about it. Do you remember the first time you saw Beautiful Girls?
Yeah, I do. So I was in high school. I didn't see it in the theater. I saw it when it was released on video. So I was a senior in high school, and it was a film that I rented a bunch. I saw it on HBO or whatever the movie channels were back in the day that my folks had, Cinemax, whatever. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's a movie that I distinctly remember watching with a bunch of my high school friends multiple times. We loved it. Um, and yeah, I completely agree with you. It's as a producer of independent film, right? In 2026, I can assure you that the only way that you would ever get this movie off the ground is if you had private equity financing and you just got super lucky with getting all the actors that you wanted, because no one makes movies like this anymore. Nobody really makes any of the movies that director Ted Demme made. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. He passed away way too early. But he made films like he started off doing videos with Dennis Leary, like stand up comedy videos, and then he did the Dennis Leary movie The Ref in
Yeah.
'94. He did Beautiful Girls in '96. Um, he ended up directing a really funny movie with Martin Lawrence and Eddie Murphy called Life, which is like
Life.
this comedy drama. Like he was, Blow with Johnny Depp. He passed away way too early. Monument Ave was another great movie that he directed. He produced. Nobody makes movies like that anymore. Like you said, it's very hard to get those types of films made for whatever reason. And this movie existed in that post Tarantino, sweet spot for Miramax where, Scott Rosenberg at the time was like the hottest writer in Hollywood. He, he would write, of course, Con Air, after the fact, afterwards, year later, year or two later, Con Air would come out. And he was a big writer for Bruckheimer, Gone in 60 Seconds, Armageddon. He did all that stuff. He was the hot writer at the time. Everybody wanted his stuff. He's still working now. Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead was the
Mm.
first movie that his first credit, and that was like right after Pulp Fiction and hitting that time. And Miramax, that this was their bread and butter, relatively low budgeted films with these ensemble casts. Everybody in this cast has done great work elsewhere, but they're all perfect in these roles. And it's one of and I would almost submit to you that everybody in this cast gives a performance that's close to, if not their best that they ever did.
Yes.
and it's a weird cast, because like a lot of these actors didn't go on to have perhaps some of like the biggest things happen to them after. This is like one of those movies like True Romance, you know what I mean? It doesn't have the violence of that film or anything like that, but it's just like it's an endlessly stacked deck from a casting standpoint of all of these amazing people. And now, if you tried to make a movie like this, unless they're all getting paid nothing, you just don't get a chance to make this kind of movie. So I completely agree with you. A very specific film coming out in a very specific time and place in Hollywood, and a movie that really doesn't stand a chance of getting made these days, unless you're just super lucky or super famous.
So the heart and soul of this movie is Scott Rosenberg, the writer you just mentioned. So at this time in his career, Things That Do in Denver When You're Dead had just come out, so he's hot stuff. He wrote a spec for Con Air. He was waiting for Disney to get back to them, and at that time, he does say it's kind of biographical in many ways. His father was sick with cancer. He went back to his hometown in Massachusetts. It was a big snowstorm. It's just surrounded with snow plows, catching up with old friends. And then, he was in a really he was in a rut. A 7.5 year relationship had just ended. And he just wanted to, write something that didn't have to do with like, the whole violence and stuff of black humor and stuff of what Con Air and Things to Do in Denver had. He wanted to write something else. And he actually said to his brother, I'm going to go to my room and I'm going to write a movie called Beautiful Girls, and it's going to be about guys. That's what he said in the
Yeah,
interview.
it's a chick flick for guys. That's really
Exactly.
what it is. It's great.
And supposedly he also said that he was listening to the song Mr. Jones from Counting
Mm.
Crows, and the line where they said, "We all want something beautiful." That's something he was kind of inspired by as well. So he went in his room. A week later, he comes out with a script, and not only a script. He says the script that he came out was a script that everyone kind of read, including Ted Demme, to kind of get on board the movie. I think sometimes, they say with artists when you are kind of like down and out, sometimes you write your best stuff. When you're successful and you're happy and such, it's kind of harder to find kind of like the things you need to kind of tap into some primal emotions and get that movie made. But a lot of times when your back's against the wall, when you feel like the world's against you, when you just feel just down and you don't know what to do with yourself, that's when sometimes your best work comes from. Pain and suffering equals, artistic gold. I don't know if that's true or not. You could probably tell me more than me because you work in film and you've written and you've directed short films and you produce feature films, if that's true or not. But it seems to be the formula to work for Rosenberg in this movie.
Yeah, no, I have not directed anything. I have produced feature films, but I'm not a director. I'm not a screenwriter. But I can certainly attest to what you're talking about. Inspiration coming from places of necessity, and yeah, I mean, this is just one of those lightning in the bottle scripts where each character is beautifully modulated. It's a generous piece of writing, right? Like not I don't there isn't one character that you don't care about on some level. And there's so much backstory, there's so many little things. It's just it's a really wonderful piece of screenwriting when you break down the characters and their wants and their desires and their needs and and the small town aspect is just so spot on. Like I'm from small town Connecticut, so this is a very East Coast movie, and it feels that way. It feels very East Coast of America, but it's also I think probably really universal. The themes that they're all exploring, it doesn't matter where you live. But there's just lots of little things about the movie that they got right, and and it extends to all the way to to the various performances, the low key manner in which it was shot, the whole package. It's just it reminded me when I revisited it a couple nights ago. Um, I was totally reminded of why I absolutely love the film. And the opening song, the song Beautiful Girl, and
Mm.
I'm trying to remember who sings that. It's so melancholy and it's almost like Bruce Springsteen-ish.
Very
In
Springsteen, yes.
what is it?
It's very Bruce Springsteen. That's what it reminded me of as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not him. I'm trying to think who sang the song Beautiful Girl.
I'm looking up the track list now.
Pete Droge and Dave Stewart. Pete Droge and the Sinners. So I'm not I could tell you who shot every single movie, from, today to eternity. I'm not very good with musicians' names. I'm terrible with names of songs and the names of musicians, but I know what I like to hear.
Mm.
I love that song. And when it was playing in the beginning, I was like, oh man, that's right. This song, I absolutely love this song. And then all the needle drops are great. It's just got it's another 90s epic soundtrack, right? Like this is another one of these movies that had a playthrough soundtrack. And, it was just again, they don't make movies like this anymore, right? So it made 20. I'm looking at the Wikipedia here. I'm just so curious. The film was released on February 9th, 1996 in
Mm.
752 theaters. So that's like no movie these days gets that kind of release. 700. It's like you're either getting 10 theaters or 4,000. 752 theaters in the United States. That was the Miramax specialty, huh? Grossing 2.7 million on its opening weekend. It went on to gross 10.5 million in the United States. It made four times its opening, over four times its opening, and 27 million worldwide. And I was funny. I went back and I read some of the reviews. It was well reviewed. The Roger Ebert review is a beautifully written piece of film criticism. Also reminded me of how much I loved reading Roger Ebert back in the day. And when he really enjoyed a movie, you just felt the passion coming through. And his review is really well written. It's insightful, and it's just he was just such a great critic. And again, when he liked the film, he really told you that he liked it.
Um, let's move on to the director Ted Demme. Interestingly, I read this article. Uh, Leslie Mann was talking about how she actually auditioned for this movie. The actress Leslie Mann, she said she actually read for James Earl Brooks for Beautiful Girls. So somewhere he was attached to this project there. And then he decided not to direct it and pass it on. And then the producer of Beautiful Girls, Carrie Woods, who would do Scream and a bunch of other films as well, um, met with Ted Demme, and it's really something. It was a film that really appealed to Ted because he said that Scott Rosenberg, it felt like to him, Scott Rosenberg felt like he was following him around for the last 10 years. It was kind of like, and he loved the idea of this idea of small town America, where you meet up with your friends, the idea of what happens when you go home after you haven't been there for a while, that kind of whole nostalgia kind of feeling, which I think the film captures really well. And another thing he said is that a movie that had a big influence on him was The Deer Hunter in regards to this movie, because he said
Mhm.
he's used The Deer Hunter in three different films. The first part is up to the wedding, so that part in small town Pennsylvania, they still work as they go hunting, they hang out with each other. Then you have the Vietnam War movie, and then you have the post-war kind of film. All three movies like one, but the whole kind of the buddy movie aspect of it, where and I could see it definitely, especially like with the sing along. And later on, I'm going to talk about the Neil Diamond sing along that they have in this movie. But don't forget, the Deer Hunter has a similar thing as well, where they sing the Frankie Valli song as well. So I could definitely see a lot of stuff. Supposedly, he screened the film for the cast and crew as well, to just remind them this is kind of the what I want you to capture. So he had these guys kind of stay with each other for a month in Minnesota, where this was actually filmed in Minnesota, to get to know each other a little more and try to get a rapport going on. And I think that's some really cool ideas and really cool instincts by Ted Demme. And I think as you said, he passed away very young. I think it was at a celebrity basketball game or something. He had a heart attack or something like that back in 2010 or something. Very, very tragic. But the movies that he had and the people that he collaborated with, everyone sings his praises. Absolutely everyone that he worked with, because he was kind of like an actor's director, a director's actor, uh, um,
Yeah.
in a sort of way, and it shows in the movie. I think it's just a really kind of the way he brings about everyone's great best elements in this stacked cast. And as you said, they all give performances that if you're going to list, a top five for each actor, Beautiful Girls is going to be up in the top in that list for sure.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, really, like, I was just a fan. I was a fan of really all of his films, and he's just one of those filmmakers that he was making movies at a time in Hollywood when it wasn't dominated by CGI and superheroes and the onslaught of IP and like all this stuff. Like, like there wasn't there wasn't a film in his filmography that wasn't an original movie, I don't think. Do you know what I mean? So you have that element, and then you have this limited filmography. So you're just left to wonder where he might have gone with his career had he been able to make a few more movies. It really is a shame. And just he had great instincts for comedy and drama, and like
Yeah.
blending those two things together. It seems maybe like it would be easy, but like blending tones is not the easiest thing for filmmakers. And when you see somebody do it really well repeatedly, it draws a lot of respect. So
The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by Amazon Prime Video. One of the best on-demand streaming services available, Amazon Prime Video features exclusive Amazon originals as well as popular movies and TV shows. Watch Amazon Prime Video anytime, anywhere.
Let's talk about the cast here, and it's such a stacked cast, like we've been talking about. So I'm only going to pick out a few different people here that kind of stuck out with me in this movie. First person I want to talk about is Matt Dillon. He plays Tommy Birdman Rowland. It's kind of like the former high school football star turned snowplower, known as the Legend, and the Legend will still fuck you up if you cross his path, as reminded in the movie. Um, he had he became a star in the 80s. So from the movies, he was in Rumblefish and Outsiders and a bunch of others. But for me, the 90s, I think, is where we find his best work. And it has these string of movies, starting with Singles, To Die For,
to die
Beautiful
for.
Girls,
Yeah.
Something About Mary goes into comedy, fantastic. Wild Things ends the 90s with Wild Things. I mean, that's just a
Yeah.
great
It's a great
run
run.
of movies in there. But to me, what's kind of sad is that he seems to be an actor that's kind of lost in time. I think the last kind of thing that he did that really stuck out is maybe he did that Wayward Pines TV show, the M. Night Shyamalan show back in 2015. But since then, I know he's been working, but I haven't really seen him do much,
Yeah.
especially I mean, he would be great for some type of, I don't know, TV
Trust
drama
me, I've
series or
I've
something.
I've bandied his name about for numerous movies that we're trying to produce.
Mm,
He's an amazing actor. For some reason, the leading man or semi-leading man roles in Hollywood just went away, and I don't really know why. He's never not great
yep.
in anything that he's in. Um, you never know why certain actors truly, unless they come out and say something. Was it his agent? Was it his manager? Was it a personal thing? The kinds of movies that got popular where they, like, it's like he's never been in like a Marvel movie. He's never been in a DC movie. He's never been in any of that stuff. And he's so undervalued. Like he's so like that if he's in the film, he's going to be quality. That run in the '90s, like you said, man, that was an amazing run to die for. He is brilliant in that film. And here he's great. I mean, he's everything that you resent in high school, right? Like the guy that got everything, and then like the guy who's now you're like, you're still stuck you're still stuck at home and you haven't done anything right. So it's like this great role that he knew exactly how to play in all the little moments, and the whole relationship stuff between him and Lauren Holly is great. It's like genuinely sexy, and there's a lot under the surface. The movie is about what, like Regrets? Is it about um life passing you by, right? Like,
To me, it's a movie about these guys trying to find some type of perfection that's not there whatsoever.
yeah, that's
The whole
true.
thing
Yeah.
about Rappaport's character with his supermodels
Oh
and
yeah,
how
the super.
they rank women or anything up to 10, and where and you could tell by the way they talk about these things where they are in their station of life. The only person in the movie who's kind of like only really got his stuff together is Mo, the family man, because
Yeah,
he's situated. He's found his place. It might not be the place where he wanted to be. It might not be the place where Rappaport's character thinks he should be, but it's his place. He knows where he is. He knows what he's about. Where everyone else, they're trying to find some type of perfection that just can't be attained. That's what kind of comes across with me when I watch it.
totally.
Um, Timothy Hutton plays Willie Conway, the New York pianist, goes back to visit his hometown. He's essentially the lead in what is this ensemble project. I mean, the movie does kind of revolve around him. He's the one that starts the thing going by coming back to town, and he's the one that gets most screen time. Him being the jazz pianist leads us to a scene in the movie, the Sweet Caroline scene, the bar sing-along, which I think if you're going to name like one of the best scene in the film, I think a lot of people will go back to that scene there. Supposedly, though, they didn't know what song they were going to do until the day of filming. They always thought they were going to do Neil Diamond, but they were going back and forth, and then they chose it and it worked out. And what's interesting about this song and the whole Neil Diamond thing is that Neil Diamond was having quite a moment in those indie films a couple of years beforehand. Urge Overkill covered Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon for the Pulp Fiction soundtrack. That was a Neil Diamond ditty as well. So he was having a bit of a renaissance here amongst these filmmakers and screenwriters who kind of, choose his songs to feature in their movies. Um, I want to count down, though, my top five bar sing-alongs in movies. This is my five. So if you have any objections, please tell me afterwards, or if you'll change things around.
Okay.
So starting from five down to one. All right, so the first one's going to be an odd one. The Other Guys, the comedy with Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell. There's a sing-along in
One of
that
the
movie,
funniest movies.
funny movie. Funniest
But
scenes is a scene where Will Ferrell partakes in what they call the sad bar song, uh, in which just like it's filled with war and treachery, infidelity, or what Will Ferrell's character says, a song filled with rich history throughout the song. It's kind of like a parody of kind of like the bar sing along. Number four, Three Amigos, My Little Buttercup. Martin Short and Steve Martin put on a little show for the outlaw Mexicans in a Mexican bar who think they're a bunch of badasses, but really they're just out of work Hollywood stars. Number three, I put Beautiful Girl, Sweet Caroline. We just spoke about that. Number two, The Deer Hunter, You're Too Good to Be True to Frankie Valli. Very kind of sporadic, kind of instantaneous, kind of organic kind of sing along they have in that film. Number one, Top Gun. You've lost that loving feeling. I think that's going to be number one for sure for me.
yeah,
How does that list sound to you? Is anything that I missed out
that's a
on?
that's a solid list, man. I'm racking my brain trying to think of any other. I was, Top Gun for me would be right up there. I'm trying to think about any other, um, you know, really memorable bar song moments. But no, I mean those are certainly good. Those are certainly good. And
Um,
like
Go ahead.
I don't know, and like in Beautiful Girls when they sing Sweet Caroline, um, every single person during that I watched during that scene, they all look like they were just having so much fun. Now I know
Yeah.
that it's their job, like that's their, that's the whole thing with an actor, right? But like there was just an honest camaraderie, I think, going on with that film, perhaps in that ensemble. Like it would be fun. It would be great for somebody to do like a like 30 years later roundtable with all the actors, right? And like get them back for like a joint interview and talk about what it was like to make that movie. I wish somebody would do that.
Um, Finally, I want to talk about Natalie Portman. She plays the role of Marty, not to be mixed with Martha. Marty, named after her grandfather, because their parents thought they were having a boy. She's the 13-year-old neighbor to Timothy Hutton's character. She's kind of like the old soul. She's the one that kind of cuts through to all the stuff he's going through and kind of like really cuts through the core of stuff. Um, Ted Demme said that when he was pitching a movie to her, she was in the middle of doing a huge trigonometry project. That's how young she was. She was in high school doing projects for school. It's a really interesting role in that it's kind of like this friendship that blossoms between Timothy Hutton's character of Willie and this 13-year-old girl to the point where Timothy Hutton kind of becomes smitten with her. Not, I'm not talking about in a sexual way or anything. He just finds like a connection with her. And it's a
Yep.
thing that I think Ted Demme does really well in able to show this blossoming kind of friendship between them without making them seem uncomfortable. He always said that one thing he did to help do that, he always made sure there was an obstacle between them. There was a car, there was a fence, there was something or other. The only time they really connect in the film is the one time when she kind of falls in his arms when she pretends to fall over on the ice rink, and later when he gives her a kiss on the cheek, kiss on the cheek. I think it's really well done in the movie, and to me, I think still to this day, it's one of her best performances. I think it's such to have an actor be so young, young teenager, 13, 14 years old when she made this film, pull off a performance like that. I think it's fantastic, and I think incredibly memorable, and again, one of the best performances in her career as well.
I agree, dude, for sure. And she, of course, was coming off The Professional, right? So there was already a preconceived notion of her as a young actress being in a film with like older men and like, the role, she ended up in two pretty provocative roles early on in her career. And they were done, especially Beautiful Girls, with the right amount of class and the right amount of smarts to approach the material. I love The Professional. I love Leon, right? But like that's a very European movie in many
Yeah.
respects, especially the international cut. Um, the showing a friendship. I mean, like what 30? How old is Timothy Hutton supposed to be? 30, like in his mid 30s, late
I
20s,
think
early
in
30s.
I think in real life he's in his mid 30s, but I think the character's like 26 in the movie.
Okay, so he's playing late 20. Okay, so he's playing late 20s, early 30s. The idea of showing any relationship between a
Yeah.
man that age and a girl of her age, right? Like it's tricky, and there's definitely something more, right? Like you obviously know she has a huge crush on him. It's evident. He knows that. I mean, there's a line where he says, like, couldn't I just wait 15 years and she'll be whatever age, right? Like he knows that she even calls herself an old soul. He knows that there's more to her and that she's like she's wise beyond her years. And at the same time, there's never any you know, like creepy, icky factor to it. Like it just comes off as wholesome and sweet and nice and also very human. Like I think that there's just something human about it that and the notion of putting that relationship in a movie these days, like I don't see that subplot happening anywhere where like a studio is concerned or like anything like that. Like it comes off as, you know, I can imagine different generations not having the same opinion maybe as you and I do
Hmm.
of that material or that scene. And that's disappointing to me, but it's a reminder of the complexities of relationships and how they can be shown on screen. So, and for her at that age to have been that attuned to the material, to have played it the way that she played it, obviously she's being directed, but like it's still up to the performer. It suggests that almost she knew more about the layers of the scenes and at the time that they were filming. And if that's the case, then would love to, if I ever got a chance to interview Natalie Portman, one of my first questions would be, Beautiful Girls, tell me about it. What was it like? I would
Yeah.
love to hear her expound upon that experience. So
Um, I have a little theory in regards to the cast of this movie. I call it the curse of beautiful girls. Not to say that they're cursed because of beautiful girls, but it's really interesting. So just say you're having that 30-year roundtable with all these actors, and then you look at where they are now compared to where they were when this movie came out. So Matt Dillon, we spoke about, where's his career gone? Timothy Hutton, pretty much in exile after being kind of embroiled in some of this Me Too stuff that was happening. Rosie O'Donnell, I don't think she even lives in America anymore. She became more of a political pundit and she moved away to Ireland, wherever. Michael
Yeah.
Rappaport, same. He's on, Twitter now doing videos about his own like political kind of stuff. So many people kind of involved with this movie. Mira Sorvino really doesn't get that much work anymore
Yeah,
either.
I mean, nearly they've all fallen by the wayside except for Uma Thurman and,
Natalie Portman, and that's pretty much
Natalie
it.
Portman.
And
Yeah.
and it's and no, I should say Noah Emmerich is still doing great work now. Noah Emmerich,
Love Noah.
this was his first film as well, which is
Can we just,
something to think about.
and really quick here, I mean, like, it just, I don't know if anybody's ever done the Noah Emmerich podcast, but like, could there ever be a more unsung actor
Hmm.
than Noah Emmerich, right?
I know.
He's the brother of the famous New Line executive Toby Emmerich, right? Um, the guy ends up in, I mean, I have it right here. I mean, it's like this bears, it's worth discussing.
Yep.
Last Action Hero with Arnold Schwarzenegger is his first credit on here that I can see. Beautiful Girls, Copland, The
Hmm.
Truman Show,
Hmm.
comes back for Ted Demme in Life, Crazy in Alabama, Tumbleweeds, Frequency, Love and Sex, Wind Talkers, Beyond Borders, Miracle, Cellular, Little Children, Pride and Glory. The dude was in everything. Super 8, Warrior, Blood Ties, Jane Got a Gun. I mean, like, he went into TV. He did amazing work on The
They're
Americans,
Americans. I think
right?
he won an Emmy or something for that.
Yep. Does amazing work on television left and right, but he was the guy in that late 90s, 2000s, where you just like, you knew you were going to see Noah Emmerich pop up in something. And like,
And
he's
he
like,
was always going to provide you with a
yep,
solid performance
always
all the
solid,
time. Hmm.
always solid. But one of my favorite performances in any movie is his performance in The Truman Show.
Yeah,
It is such a brilliant performance. That movie is just one of my favorites. I've watched
me
it so
too.
many times. But his performance there is just, it's sublime. And he's just one of those actors, like you said, whenever he showed up, it's like David Morse. Remember David
Mm,
Morse? Love
absolutely.
that guy, right? Like, you don't see him anymore because he's old now. He doesn't get much work, but God, when David Morse would show up, you knew you were getting a good performance.
The Matt's Movie Reviews YouTube channel is brought to you by TeePublic. TeePublic is the world's largest marketplace for independent creators to sell their work on the highest quality merchandise. With over 1.2 million designs, TeePublic is sure to have something you'll love.
I'll go talk about how they actually shot this film in Minnesota. They wanted to do Boston, but they figured, hey, we're going to go to Minnesota because it's going to be winter. And then they went to Minnesota and found that there was no snow, even though it was cold. So they had to make their own snow while they were there. They shot in February to May of 1995. Interestingly, they were in a place called Stillwater, which was like a stand-in for this fictional town of Knightsbridge of Massachusetts. Two other films were filming at the same time in the same
Hey, hold on,
place.
hold on one second. If you're about to say something that, I don't know if you're about to say the movie that you're going to tell me is shooting, but tell me It's a Simple Plan.
Nope.
No, all right. I'll tell you about why I said that in a second. Go ahead. What were
The
what were
two
the other?
films of shoot, there was two other films shooting at the same time. Fargo and Feeling, Minnesota were shooting at the same time. And
There you
all of
go.
the cast of all three movies stayed in the one same hotel in this small town. So at any moment, you can go in this hotel and see Uma Thurman or Cameron Diaz or Keanu Reeves or Frances McDormand or Matt Dillon just loitering in the hobby and everything else. They're all doing so this
That's
place of
awesome.
Stillwater, Minnesota had all of these stars in there at the same time making these three movies that will become kind of like classics of like mid-90s cinema. Fargo especially, of course. But yeah, that's isn't that amazing to
Stillwater,
think of? Stillwater,
Stillwater, Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Interesting. That's
Yeah.
a cool tidbit. Yeah, no, I was funny. A couple nights ago, I revisited Beautiful Girls in anticipation of this chat, and then last night I revisited A Simple Plan with Billy
Hmm.
Bob Thornton and Bill Paxton, which is
Sam Raimi, yeah.
absolutely knockout brilliant. Sam Raimi's never made a better film than that. I love all of his movies pretty much, but man, that movie is perfect, scene for scene perfect. But I'm watching it and I'm saying to myself, was this the same town that they shot Beautiful Girls in?
Mm.
It looked so similar. So that's why I was asking. But I think A Simple Plan came out a year or two after, so it wouldn't have linked up. But that's great movie trivia. Stillwater, Minnesota, Fargo, Feeling, Minnesota, which would be fun to revisit. I haven't seen that movie in years, man. God.
Yeah.
And then Beautiful Girls. Well, that's a good little trio.
You mentioned before about the release. So Feb 9, 1996. So next week will be 30 years since the movie came out.
30
750,
years.
30 years. 752 theaters, United States and Canada. $2.7 million opening weekend, 10.5 million in the US, 27 million worldwide. I'm sure though that's just like US and Canada box office. I'm sure a lot of play would have been had with cable and DVD, everything as well. I watched it on cable. I think a lot of people might have watched it on cable, especially here in Australia. Did you know about the TV spin-off called October Road? Have you ever heard of that? That was
Yeah,
something interesting to me. Yeah.
I watched it. I watched it at that time. I was working in the television industry in Los Angeles, and that pilot season was a very competitive pilot season. And for my job, I was tasked with watching every show that season. October Road, I believe it was called, right?
Hmm.
Um, that was on that year that I was working at a television production company. I really enjoyed the show. It was wonderful. It very much was. It's in the same world as Beautiful Girls. It's existing in the
Yes.
same thing. So yes, I remember the show. I really enjoyed it. Unfortunately, it didn't last long enough, but it was very well done.
Yeah, yeah. I was surprised I found out about this. So it's like about a author who, after a decade, returns to his hometown of Knightsbridge, Massachusetts, and supposedly he written the stories of his real life friends, their lives into his story, which supposedly Scott Rosenberg said that some of the elements of Beautiful Girls that was based on real life incidences in his life growing up, especially a friend had an affair with a married woman, created a bit of ruffles there within his friendship community because supposedly that infidelity no one spoke about outside of the town, so they kind of like airing other people's business was a little too much for some of his friends there. Overall, absolutely love Beautiful Girls. Watching it again lately was a pleasure because it reminded me it's a pleasure, but at the same time, there's a little bit of sorrow with it too because it just kind of reminded me about how these we were in the midst of such a great period of filmmaking. Where when you're watching it at the time, you kind of take it for granted, but when you look back
Oh,
on
of
it like 30
course.
years later, you're like, man, that time was just so good. And like I said, I think it's almost like a perfect movie in so many ways. The direction, the writing, the setting, the actors, how it all kind of just plays out, and the way they can get that ensemble cast and everyone has their moment to shine. I think is fantastic. Rosie O'Donnell can have this great monologue of this tracking shot through like the supermarket. Mira Sorvino can have a time. Everyone has a moment in the film, which I think is just great. And it's to me, it's a movie that if people out there have not seen Beautiful Girls, I highly, highly, highly encourage you to find it, watch it. I watched it. I rented it on Prime. It's on Apple TV. It's available, so people really need to watch this film. Maybe in the States right now where it's really cold and all that, if you want to watch kind of like a winter movie, a winter style
Yeah,
movie, that could be
perfect
the one
winter
for
movie.
you. Perfect winter
Yeah.
movie. And I got to say, Nick, um, I just got to say thank you for talking to me about Beautiful Girls because it was a struggle to try to find someone to talk about this film. And I was like, hey, Nick might know about Beautiful Girls and be into it. And sure enough, you
Oh
were.
no,
And
this was a lot of fun to revisit it. It's a really great film. For folks in United States or wherever, it's streaming right now on Pluto TV for
mhm.
no charge, so you can see it there. But it's rentable. I think there's like a $5 Blu-ray, or at one point it was very cheap. You know, and it's worth watching. It's one of those movies that it gets better the more you watch it. So
Yes,
you
absolutely.
know, big recommendation.
Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content.